I got to get one with space on there.
Yeah.
See, now that when I did it for Zach, and now we have a separate one for Justin. Now it just feels unfair to the guests to not have them included.
Yeah, we should.
We should.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody. Welcome Space. Thank you for being here.
Oh, hey, everyone.
Today we are talking about maintenance and mechanics. Yeah. Or are we talking about drug interactions between your prescriptions and LSD here with Dr. Space? Not sure. But I'm pretty sure we're talking about EV mechanics.
Yeah.
so I think you guys are of the opinion, or at least the EV manufacturers are of the opinion, that these new vehicles that they're producing don't require a poop ton of maintenance. Is that so?
Yeah, so definitely not. I pulled up on myev.com here. Let me pull it up here. Here's some of the recommended maintenance here. Check the coolant level on the battery, check the cabin heater, power inverter every 7,500 miles. Twice a year, wash your car to make sure there's nothing corrosive in the underbody. Every 15,000 miles, do your windshield wiper blades. Every 36,000, replace your cabin air filter. Every 75,000, you want to check those struts that are lifting up the hood. So that's important. Every 5 years, drain and fill the vehicle coolant circuits and replace that brake fluid. We all replace our brake fluid regularly, right?
I don't know that I've ever had a car long enough to do that.
And every 7 years, have the air conditioning charged or changed and make sure that it's all good. There's basically what they're saying here is there's really not a lot to do maintenance wise on an EV vehicle. There's just without so many moving parts. That is not to say that things don't go wrong. Like, right, Mari, we just talked about right before we came on about windshield or not windshields, windows, right?
Yeah.
Right. Every vehicle has moving parts. Those moving parts can break. So you got an electric window or even a manual crank window. It's there's a chance it's going to break at some point. So those things still will always need to be repaired. As your headline suggests, Ray, there's a lot of electronic components that are going to have to be fixed, right?
Well, I wasn't thinking of that headline for a lot of electronic components that were going to be fixed. I was thinking of that headline for all those auto mechanics that are going to need a new career, and you know they could be the one that comes up with the coding for the software to make that damn EV even better than allegedly it is today. So, yeah. Have you ever thought about learning coding? You should.
You should. I mean, I think my generation was the first generation to be told that a lot, and certainly every subsequent one should know. You should at least have a basic knowledge of coding at this point. Absolutely. Here's a question, Space. See if you can answer this one from Lone FGC. Is there a need for rust proofing the undercarriage of an EV with something like fluid film in the Midwest to combat the winter road salts? It's interesting because most EVs that I know of are pretty solid underneath, right?
And it's way, if you look underneath an EV, it's like it's a flat, a flat surface completely. Unlike a normal car, where it has these nooks and crannies, where you can get dirt and salt and stuck, and then you get issues there. But I'm in California, so I don't have to deal with that. We barely get rain, so yeah. I know that's why it's a good point when on the service that they do at 20,000 miles, that washing the underside of the vehicle is one of the points that we kind of ask, like, why? That's what you need to wash your car, right? But yeah, you want to be sure that there's no any kind of material there that's generating any corrosion. I would imagine that there's panels and special paneling that might protect the car underneath. I look at my Polestar and it's like very soft material now, so they use like a material that covers all the exposed areas. So I don't think so that there might be like in old times where you have to put this special wax, product on top of, on those parts, so they could be protected for the winter and stuff.
Ray, would you get rust proofing? I mean, would you even get rust proofing on any vehicle in 2023? Aren't they kind of made more for that?
No, I would not get rust proofing because the manufacturers are mandated to cover rust through protection on vehicles for I forget how many years now, but no, but I do have a question. How often do you need to change those platinum tipped spark plugs?
Yeah. Well, lots of stuff going away in the maintenance, and we understand that EVs aren't going to replace ICE vehicles in 10 years. Even if by 2035 every single new vehicle was an EV, which it won't be, but let's pretend it was. You still have used vehicles for another 20, 30 years going on, longer, because collectors hang on to them, stuff like that. So we understand that it's not going away tomorrow. And that's not sort of what we're talking about. We're talking about the sort of the evolution. And let's say a mechanic does invest in learning EVs. We just went over some of what the EV schedule is. What are they going to, you invest all this money to check out EVs. What are you repairing? How much business are you going to have?
Do you think, I'll ask you both, do you think that local independent repair shops will maybe invest in battery health equipment to attract EV owners to come there so that they can get the battery health checked on a quasi-regular basis? I mean, because they got to do something. Yeah. And even if they're doing brakes, I mean, how often with regenerative braking, how often do you do brakes on an EV?
So not much. I mean, Tesla has lifetime warranty on their brakes because of that. Some of their older models had it. Sorry, not the newer ones, because you can turn off regenerative braking. Yeah. So they, but yeah, the brakes just don't get used much. I know Space disagrees with me. I love one pedal driving. I love regenerative braking. So I rarely, unless I'm at a stop sign or stoplight, my foot's never on the brake. I know people with one pedal driving that I've talked to say, I don't even put it on at a stoplight. That's a bad idea, by the way. I had a long discussion with someone about that the other day. If someone hits you from behind, your natural reaction is going to slam your foot to the floor. So if your foot is hovered on the accelerator, that's a really bad idea. So just put that foot over on the brake, even if you're not using it, just because you never know what's going to happen.
That's true.
So that PSA is brought to you by Justice.
But anything that has vibration and heat, that's going to be something you need to take care of. EV or not, and brakes is one of those issues, right? Like brakes, there's friction when you brake and generates heat. Heat generates wear and tear, right? And I think at the end, I'm not worried so much of battery. I'm just like the engine. It's any modern engine, that without very rare exceptions, they do last a while. They go beyond 100,000 miles. If you take care of it, really reasonably, with oil changes and stuff, you're not gonna have an engine replacement when it turns 100,000 miles. You're not gonna need a battery when it turns 100,000 miles. You might take care of a Lexus or a Toyota or a Mazda. You can do 200. If it's well taken care of, right? So I'm not so worried about the battery and stuff and the engine. I'm more about the expenses of all the small things that break down on a car when it begins to be used, right? So window regulators, we were talking about BMW and Mini window regulators. I think that's a big source of revenue for dealers in changing window regulators for more cars. Switches, that's something that fails a lot. Like if your ignition switch or your window switches, anything that touches, anything anything that has on and off, mechanical, component. There's a lot of small pumps and actuators, everything on an EV car, like in a normal car, Like I was worried even with a Toyota, I was worried that, I'm more worried about the air conditioning breaking down and having a $2,000 bill just to get it fixed, that compressor or whatever else, because
Yeah.
that's so it's the labor in it so intense sometimes to take stuff out and replace it. And that's gonna happen, with the cooling system on an EV. It's such a complex, way of cooling the battery and cooling also the cabin and stuff, that if that goes out, that's gonna be a big expense. And I'm not so worried about the battery. Everyone's looking at the battery, but you have to understand that it's a moving machine, right? So you're gonna have some expenses,
Yeah.
right? Right now,
Yeah,
with me,
EVs
I
aren't
just
maintenance free
no,
by
they're
any
not. No,
means.
no,
I mean,
no.
they're just a lot less. You still have to
Hmm.
maintain them. They're still a moving vehicle. I've always said, my father taught me, if it moves, it's going to break.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I was in real estate long enough and inspected enough homes. I will tell you, if it's stationary, it will break too.
Mhm.
If it is constructed by man or nature, it's going to wear down and break over
I,
time.
I have a question for you, and you know me, I'm the home of unusual questions. But for instance, Justice, in your Tesla, you have a computer screen.
Mhm.
It looks like a separate tablet that's
Yes, it does.
sitting. Yeah.
Just glued onto the dash. Yep, that's what it looks
So
like.
what happens? What happens? A, if that malfunctions, and B, what if it dies? I mean, how do you replace that? Who replaces that?
Well, I think Tesla replaces that at the cost that would depend on the warranty,
Yes.
but I'm sure it's not a cheap cost. And yeah, we've seen this in the Tesla semis, right? Like Tesla for 20 years, that has not been very much of a problem. But the semis that are coming out now, the only major defect they keep having is those screens keep going out. And the truck will keep driving. It's doing everything else, but you have no information anymore about anything at all, your speed and nothing. So, the truck drivers pull off the road, and then they've been having them towed to the local Tesla service station, however far that might be, because its screen goes out and it's just a matter of precaution of, well, what happens when all of your gauges don't work? Well, you stop driving it, and that is definitely a concern. Tesla, like I said, doesn't really have a problem with that per se, but that's not to say it'll never happen or has never happened. And certainly that has been an issue with other vehicles. The ID4s had lots of infotainment issues on their screen. They have a separate gauge cluster, but that screen is still your control for
Mhm.
your entire vehicle. So you don't want it to go out. You don't want it to be buggy. You don't want it to be fixed. And those are the kind of the things that we talk about of the things still go wrong. And it's a software thing. Now, Tesla doesn't buy out of the box software. So that's where they're somewhat different than a lot of these companies that buy out of the box from somebody else and then adapt into their vehicles. Tesla writes their own code, which is why they're so stable, which is why they work so well, because they're built just for that vehicle, for their operating systems. But we've all have computers. We all know the frustration of computers. And really, what you're driving in an EV is a computer that
Mhm.
happens to move, right? You're not driving a traditional ICE vehicle that, well, I would say ICE vehicles all need computers nowadays, right? Ever since maybe the 90s forward.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. I mean, I don't know how many times I've gotten the blue screen of death on a computer, or it's just frozen for whatever reason, whether it be my smart TV or my smartphone, um, or my smart car. I mean, sometimes they're just not all that smart. Um, what do you do then? If you're in the middle of nowhere and the screen freezes or becomes inoperable, I mean, it's not like you can take it to have it towed to the closest garage and get that belt replaced that just broke. I mean, that's got to be a huge inconvenience, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if it freezes, you can restart your Tesla screen while driving,
Okay.
because the screen is your viewport, but it's not really controlling the vehicle. It's just your interface with that which controls the vehicle. So, like on a Tesla, if you press both buttons on the wheel and hold them continuously, I think for 15 seconds, it'll restart the screen. You can just keep driving and everything's normal. So the screen doesn't control the vehicle. It's just your interface. That said, if it went out,
Yeah.
I mean, out. Thankfully, you could drive to your local whatever Tesla service center, I guess. But as Igor said, if you're out of warranty, that thing's not cheap. And I don't know what it is, if it's just a software issue. Since Tesla doesn't really charge for software, everything's over the air. I don't know what that would be, what that cost would be. How does your Polestar work on that space?
Mine actually has 2 screens, so it has we have a normal dash, like a normal car, right? So you have one in front of you, front steering wheel, which is great. And actually, I have the infotainment screen, like the big screen, big car, that could go out, and actually it has freaked out and shut down in the middle of driving sometimes while it resets, and I still could see the normal readings for a car, right? So your speed and your gear and whatever. So that's great. So you have 2 different ones. You don't have to depend on one single it's a control area, right? It's a bad idea also, right? But yeah, so I haven't had that many issues with the Polestar, but I've had two major ones, and I think any car will have it. One was the seatbelt, a very basic and thing that shouldn't fail. It failed, like the latch. It just got stuck and couldn't without wearing a seatbelt for. Well, I didn't drive, but it didn't work. And the other was the TCAM, like the telematics and mobile unit that's deep in the roof, stuck somewhere there. I don't know. Those things fail a lot on Polestars, and people are having that out of warranty. That's going to be one of those issues that's going to be super expensive because no one makes those modules, and you can imagine replacing it's going to be pretty pricey. And anyone knows that that's going to start failing, right? So they're major issues. Like with any car, I think they have their initial teething problems, and I think with the Polestar, they're having issues with the telematics. Everything else has been pretty solid, and I'm just not super concerned about the battery or anything. I'm more concerned about, if I hit a pothole, am I doing something to a suspension that's going to start, making a weird noise? I'm going to spend, a couple $100 to replace that, like a normal car, right? But
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's been pretty solid. Battery or not having to worry about the engine, that's a big plus, I think. Yeah, I think that's something.
Yeah, but
the engine is like the biggest worry. When I had like a GTI or had like a Volkswagen, BMW, you had to take care of it, right? And always on top of it, of fluids, and any noises that we're making, be very focusing preventative, care, not so much waiting until it breaks. But now it's like you mentioned, like on the 20,000 mile inspection, like check your hood struts. I haven't opened the hood since I bought the car. I don't know what's in there. So yeah, that's your major worry. You're pretty set,
Yeah, I was like,
wise.
I have my frunk. I got to tell you, I put stuff in it when I got the car. I've never opened it again.
I know.
I'm like,
Something's in there.
I know what's in there if I need to get stuff. That's on my emergency road kit and stuff. And I just.
But going for the screen thing, like every single car right now has these huge screens, right? So you can, whatever car you purchase, like it's like the main feature, the largest screen, the most complex. There's no buttons, everything's touch or haptic, and yeah, that's gonna be a problem for all cars down the road, because if it, like Ray says, like if it doesn't work, then the car is like out of service, like completely. I think it's a big integrated feature now for vehicles that didn't used to be when it was analog.
The thing that scares me is we keep talking about it's really a computer with wheels. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had issues with computers. I've had issues with my smart TV. And sometimes when you have those issues, they tell you to unplug it from the power source for 30 seconds and then plug it back in.
Hmm.
How do you do that to an electric car?
Right. I mean, you can get out of it; it'll shut off. But you can on a Tesla, you can actually reset the vehicle in the
Yeah, you
controls
can do
panel.
a hard reset. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can do like a
you can
hard
do
reset
you
kind of
can do a
thing.
full hard reset because it
Really?
is a computer, and we do
Yeah,
know. Yeah, not
and
while
it's
driving, Ray.
Yeah.
Don't do it while driving.
No,
But
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 but I
when you pull
mean,
over, yeah, you can do a hard reset on an EV.
yeah, and it fixes a lot of issues, like small issues, like with the radio or the nav or whatever. It like fixes them. But you gotta wait, a couple of minutes till the computer resets and says hello back.
I do want to touch on this because I think about this every single morning. So I'm going to touch on this a little bit. My problem with some of the features, I have enhanced autopilot on my Tesla, and I have it on just to assist, just because I want to play with it a little bit. I do not have full self-driving. I'm not comfortable with that.
mhm.
But I have an enhanced autopilot to sort of, keep lane and, keep me in my lane, warn me of stuff, that kind of stuff. Um, and I have Tesla insurance. And everywhere other than California, Tesla insurance uses your driving record to inform the price of your insurance. And this changes month to month. It can go up or down month to month based on your driving. So I have a problem in that I live in California, so that doesn't apply. But what does apply is I get a warning every single morning to take control because I am over the white line on the road. And the reason I'm over the white line is because California doesn't care about infrastructure. So all of our roads are torn up, and I'm over the white line avoiding potholes. And I don't mean little potholes, I mean gigantic potholes that like an F 150 would have problems with. So I avoid those and I go over, and it tries to pull me back over, which a normal human can overpower, no problem. But there is a pull on it, and it beeps at me, says, "Hey, take control of the wheel," and I like have control. But if I was in one of those states with Tesla insurance, that would be degrading my driving score.
Hmm.
As well, I've had more than one time where I've turned on the blinker and tried to change lanes, and it tried to pull me out of it because for some reason, even though I have the screen up showing what's beside me, so I know my blinker is on, um, it's not recognizing that I have that blinker on, and it tries to correct me back in. So again, on the software issue, I sort of look at it and go, look, if this is the way insurance is going to go, you better fix that. Because right now it's a minor annoyance to me. But if it's going to cost me money every time the software fails, or even worse, every time the government doesn't do their job, it's going to cost me money on my insurance. No way, man. Like I have problems with it. So there's always going to be these software questions. I think I don't see software magically getting better anytime soon and always being perfect. Um, those of us who use AI all the time know it is really far from perfect still. So like even the new, oh my, this is amazing tech is far from perfect. So I have issues on that side of it too. On and you know people jailbreak everything. You can jailbreak your Tesla.
Does that void your warranty if you do that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Really fast. And matter of fact, they tell you don't update because Tesla will find it. And they'll not only remove the jailbreak, but they'll void your warranty. And they can
wow.
even turn off your car in certain circumstances. And you have paid for a brick. So yeah, depending what you're doing, I'm sure.
Does the same hold true on a Polestar,
I
Mario?
guess, yeah, I guess so. That's part of the terms and
Yeah.
conditions of the warranty, not to um, change anything that's part of the vehicle, because it will obviously affect performance and might degrade some of the functionality of the vehicle.
Well, and that,
I
I
mean,
mean,
with your
that
phone,
goes
even
for
with
all
your phone,
vehicles,
right?
right?
Yeah, and
I mean, it goes
devices.
for all vehicles, right? Mario, we talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
this with tuning on the BMW all the time, and people who put all the mod, like, yeah, you're going to void your warranty when you start getting
Yeah.
involved in that, you know.
When
So
I modified my my old GTI, yeah, we took great care of installing everything before we went to have being serviced at the dealer, because they could find out, if that might be an issue, right? They flag it, they give you like a code 0 or something like that. So yeah, you're flagged and your warranty's gone
Wow.
like that.
yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
worth it. It's worth it. In the case of my case, it was worth it for an extra 80 horsepower, So, but why wouldn't you? I don't know if I will jailbreak my Polestar, because what am I gonna add to it? Like, I'm not gonna, unless you
yeah.
want to repair it. I think writer repair kind of thing. So will that be something that companies will allow independent shops in the future to
I
do?
mean, that's a fight as EVs get more and
Yeah.
more. The right to repair is,
Yeah.
because I know that war has already been brewing with Tesla, and there have been lots of
Mhm.
fights and lawsuits about that. Tesla was very protective for a long time and didn't let. They would actually, back in the day, if you bought a lemon Tesla and somebody else fixed it up, Tesla wouldn't let you charge at a superstation.
Oh,
Wow.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
they stopped that hard. So there have been lawsuits and fights against that. And Tesla's argument is, we don't know how that was repaired. We don't know the quality of that. And if you plug it into our charger and it catches fire or ruins the charger, like, we're not going to be responsible for any of that. So their point was, we don't know how that has been repaired, and it's kind of like a major thing, charging and the charging curve and how much power you're putting in, and you can catch things on fire, and fry circuits and all this stuff. So that was Tesla's argument. Obviously the mechanics argument is, don't call us stupid, we know how to repair stuff.
Yeah.
Which is is a legitimate point. Like, we've been fighting this with Apple for how many decades now on the right to repair. They've done these kind of things too, but I think that's definitely a big issue as the world goes EV on who can repair them. And talking about this maintenance, garages putting in, your local mechanic putting in all the stuff to check your vehicle, which, to Ray's point, I think is great. I tell people all the time, on an EV, if you're going to buy a used EV, you better go check that battery health. Yeah, and there's different ways to do it on different vehicles, but man, you really better check that before you buy the vehicle, because you have no idea. So if you can take it down to your local mechanic, that would be great. But how much is it going to charge for that? Because he's going to pay for all that equipment now.
On most EVs, does the warranty, is it transferable to the second owner if it's still under warranty, just like on most ICE vehicles?
Yeah. Yeah, you can transfer the test for as long as that warranty lasts.
Yeah. What is the warranty on a Tesla, just out of curiosity?
I believe now it's 8 years, 100,000 miles
Wow.
on the battery.
Yeah. On the battery.
On the rest of it's the normal warranty, 3-year, 36,000. So anyone who says the battery's only warranted for 100,000 because that's all it'll last, well, by that rate of thinking, that's great, because the rest of your car is going to fall apart at 36,000 miles. So don't worry about it. The battery is going to go 3 times longer than the rest of the car, because it's only warranted bumper to bumper for 36,000. So you're just going to be driving on a battery anyway.
I like that thinking.
Yeah,
it's not logical, but it's yeah.
That's going to be a big thing into the future, I think, when people buy an EV, because I think EVs are still very conservative on their warranties. Like in my Polestar, it's 540, and I think they could go beyond that. I think they could do way better, because there's no friction, no heat, no wear. But they haven't. I mean, it's pretty, really nice to see, like, hey, you get 200,000 mile warranty on this car. Would that be a big selling point, right? But they're still trying it out. It's so new that they don't know how much, the cost for other access to other parts of the vehicle might be, to extend the warranty a little bit, at least beyond what a gas vehicle should give, right? Because 540 on an EV, it seems like way too conservative.
Well,
Even though the battery is 8 years, right, and 100,000. But I think they can pull, like, they can go beyond. They just haven't. Probably because no one knows for sure what the actual cost is beyond the warranty. There aren't enough vehicles out there beyond the warranty right now.
I think one company knows the cost of their vehicles very, very well because they didn't allow anyone else to repair them for like over a decade. So they I think they do know exactly to the penny the cost of everything on their vehicles. But you know, Ray Igor has touched on it. We've had a couple other members talk about it too. What about the OEMs, right? We all know the dealership makes most of their money in the service center, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is this part of that pushback from dealers on going EV and, you know, dropping out of like the Model E program and stuff? Is not only are they having to spend a lot of extra money to make that transition, but what are they going to get on the service center side of it?
That's what I've been trying to figure out. You know, every time I look at the Model E concept, that you can't negotiate the price. So the price is set by Ford. We know from everything we've seen and read that there's very little, if any, margin built into their EVs. So if the invoice cost of an EV is essentially the same as the MSRP, and you're not going to see your customer very often for any type of service work, why would you want to make that $1 million investment to become a Ford E certified dealer? How do you make the money back? I mean, it was like the old commercial many years ago. You know, well, we lose money on every product we sell. Well, how do you make money? We make it up in volume. Well, you don't really make it up in volume. So what's
you can't make it up in volume if you're losing money
on every I mean, where is the dealership supposed to make money because even if the dealership has a smaller footprint, that still has that $1 million investment in chargers. That ain't going away.
I think Mark has a great comment here. Current EVs aren't built with obsolescence in mind. I think that will change. I think all ICE vehicles have been built with obsolescence and breaking down in mind for a long time now. They can run even better than they do. They can last a lot longer than they do. They don't, and I think that's kind of part of it. You know, we all know your iPhone, not yours, Ray, but the rest of the world's iPhone, because we're all followers and we're all sheep. But we know it's built. There's been so many lawsuits about them just destroying your old phone, so you have to go get another one when the new software comes out and stuff. That has to be somewhere in the future of this, right? Like this can't be. Because I agree. I don't think, especially Tesla, they're not built with obsolescence in mind. Man, they want to go 1 million miles. Yeah, that's what they want to do. But not everyone's going to have that. Tesla has that because when you do service it, when something does break, where do you go? Well, you have to go to Tesla. Right? That's where you're going to get the parts. That's where you're going to get the repairs. So they sort of have that in mind. They're not going to get that many, but they'll get everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit different than the dealership who will get some of this model or some of this make, some of that make, and not all of their own makes, or not everyone they sell to is going to come back to them. So that they need to be broader. So I don't know how that works in that without being planned obsolescence.
Well, and at a certain point for a dealership, that they're going to, if you're a Ford dealer, at some point you're going to trade a VW electric vehicle in or a Polestar electric vehicle in for a Ford electric vehicle. Somebody's got to do inspections on those vehicles, so that you can put them out on your lot and sell them. It's just
Yeah.
it's uncharted water, so to speak, as to how all this is going to flow.
Mhm.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of workup in there, and I know, as Mark says, when the newer battery comes out, you'll be hit with buyer's remorse. Oh, that one is smaller and lighter and goes farther, kind of thing, and that will come out and that'll be into play. So maybe that'll be part of the um, getting more used into the market and all that. I know Mark said on before the battery chemistry changes. So, how are mechanics going to be dealing with finding the older batteries? Are they, is there going to be a third party that starts collecting all old used EV batteries and selling them out to mechanics for used EVs? Because those days come. Like, stuff happens to every vehicle. Um, So that's going to happen eventually. And while a EV battery averages 200 to 300,000 miles, that's just the average. Which the 6 million mile Teslas out there did about 250. They average 250,000 miles before their battery needs replaced. One of them had to have a replacement at like 15,000 miles. So like stuff happens to vehicles, and you buy a used one, if you're not getting it checked out, you don't know that health, and it breaks down, you have to take it to a mechanic. Where are you getting that battery from? Where is that third party mechanic getting that battery from? Like in space, you have a Polestar. I keep talking from the Tesla point of view because that's what I have, and they take 60% of the market. Where does a Polestar battery come from?
Yeah,
Like,
it's completely different. It's a different scale on production, and that would mean obviously higher prices and more difficulty in finding someone that would do it for a cheaper price, right? Competitive price, let's say, because it's completely different. It's not swappable. So yeah, it's you mentioned something interesting. If that 300,000 becomes a reality and it's common knowledge, right now it isn't. Like people are still worried about battery failing at 100,000, right? What that's going to do to depreciation, what that's going to do, to the whole marketplace, because basically a car can run 300, let's say 250, with no problem. I'm not going to be as concerned about a window regulator failing, because my savings are going to be substantial. I'm not, that car will probably be less to own, than anything, by comparison. So you got to look at the total cost, right? Not so much about, oh, something's gonna fail in particular. Like, hey, I'm gonna drive this car 300,000 miles. And my cost per mile is gonna be so low that even though I might have like $1,000 in expenses per year, I mean that will more than offset anything. So because it's incredible. I mean, what I was mentioning that we don't know because there's not a lot of people driving cars, EVs with 300,000, in enough quantity to say, hey, this is normal.
Well,
I guess a car, it's not normal. It isn't normal. People dump their cars, 100,000 or earlier because they know that it's worn down a little bit, right? And I think the repair stats, statistics, they do show that there is significant cost, for some models, some brands after a given mileage. But would that be the case with a Polestar? Maybe not. Maybe the Polestar is going to be as reliable as a Lexus, because it's such a simple architecture, right? And if that's the case, well, what's going to happen? People will keep their cars way longer, right? And will that put like more um, weight on how do you repair these small issues? Maybe not so much the major ones. I don't think I don't think it's gonna be like an issue where we repair batteries every 100,000 miles. It's very more an issue of these small components that wear because they're wearable parts, right? And how we're gonna do that efficiently and at a reasonable cost down the road in 10 years, for example.
Well, and lest we forget too, on top of that, battery costs have gone down 89% in the last decade. An 89% decrease in cost on batteries in 10 years. So what's it going to be in another 10 years? I'm not saying it's going to be, throwing them out, for free, but, certainly the cost will go down and new technologies will come out and, that's been a thing. Igor says he has not seen an EV made it past 120,000. I actually know maybe half dozen more people with way more miles on their Teslas than that, old Model S's that are still going. But it depends too, because when we say 250,000 miles, I don't think we're talking about a 10-year-old Leaf, right? Space like there's.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still just like everything else. You got to shop around. We're not talking that a Nissan is the same as a Toyota either on an ICE vehicle. There's comparisons. EV doesn't change that. You got to sort of look at what it is. I mean, the new Leaf is still using a CHAdeMO connector. What in the world? Like, why would you buy that vehicle unless you're only charging it at home ever? That doesn't make any sense. You can't find that out in the wild. So, and these are all things that, is going to be a lot to talk about. I know we're talking about charging on Friday with Justin, so I won't step on his toes there. But, all right. Well, I know Space, you have a meeting to get to, so I will let you with your final words here.
No, I mean, I've always been a little bit critical in the for the EVs in terms of excitement and in terms of the do-it-yourself point of view, like being more individual with your cars. But from a maintenance and repair point of view, I'll admit these cars require way less in terms of expenses, running expenses. I see it with my car, the 20,000 mile check-in. I think the first, kind of just check the horn and check and watch the car, and it's kind of things that you're gonna think twice about spending, any significant amount of money to do that, because it really isn't needed. Only the brake fluid is gonna be the only thing that maybe you should do every, 20, I don't know, 40,000 miles or something. But I will admit that in terms of basic transportation for commuting, the best, the most efficient, in terms of cost. I mean, it's gonna be a revolution. It's gonna be something. Even I'll admit, I'll probably keep driving an EV just to go to work and go back and forth. It's gonna be, my cost is significantly lower, even though tires and whatever are more expensive. When you talk about that there are issues that will increase a little bit of the cost. It's like a game changer. So not having to worry about getting removing the carbon from parts of induction engine, direct ignition engine. Those type of issues that come with 60, 80,000 miles, getting a bit worried at 100,000, if your wife is driving the car not to get stranded, if your kid's taking the car, so he has the very safest car. I think those are going to be major issues with an EV. I think I'm going to be pretty confident at 100,000, if I decide to keep it. And even I don't want to have the latest battery or the latest charger or whatever, because I'm fine with, 220 miles, I'm fine with that. I don't need 400. So I think my takeaway is that we need more data. We need more data, more people using EVs, so we can set that like a good information to give people and say, hey, this is going to be your actual cost if you decide to keep your car 200,000 miles, right? We need to know if it's worth it, what's the sweet spot, to maybe switch, right? When your cost is going to be greater than probably, keeping the car. So yeah, more data, hopefully. I see more people driving here in California. Almost everyone is driving an EV now. So I guess in 5 years, 6 years, yeah, we're gonna start dealing with these issues, after warranty. What happens? What happens after those 5 years and 60,000 miles? So yeah, it'll be interesting, but I'll put my money in it that it's not gonna be anything battery related or any motor related. It's gonna be the small issues that will lead you to death, maybe. Based on the quality of the assembly or the quality of the integrators, the parts, because there are hundreds of companies that build small parts for your vehicle. It's not just Tesla, and those kind of things. You don't know if the quality's there or the lifespan is there, and what's going to be the cost to replace those small items on your vehicle, down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's everything other than the battery and electric motor that you're going to have to deal with on an EV. And as you say, they're made by everybody, just like every vehicle. I know everyone thinks that Ford makes all their own parts. They don't.
And
Ray, I know. I see that look. I was surprised when I started
Yeah.
this job at how many people truly do think like Ford makes all the parts for their vehicles. And like,
No, they don't.
no, Ford's an assembler
yeah,
of parts.
assembly.
They
Yeah.
assemble parts. They do not
Mhm.
make them.
Yeah.
Let's say same is true for EV. That's not, they make them for that company. Ford contracts out, hey, I need you to make this part in this way. Okay, but they're not fabricating any of it.
No, not at all. You know what time it is?
Time for lunch for you. Time for a
Yeah.
meeting for space, and I'll go find something to do.
Well, I'm going to find food.
That's all right.
I think there could be an omelet in my future.
Oh, that sounds good. It's late in the day for an omelet, but that still sounds good.
Oh, you can eat eggs any time of the day.
True. All right, so we will be back here on Friday with Justin, and we'll be talking about EV chargers and all the news of the week. Thank you very much, Space, for being here. I know you have a meeting. We really appreciate your time. Ray, as always, lots of fun.
Well, I appreciate all that I get to learn from you guys. So it has been quite the education as far as I'm concerned, and I'm enjoying it. So thank you.
And we'll see everyone on Friday.
Absolutely. I'll be back.